Hi, I'm Alex Badia, California Secretary of State, and it's my honor to be part of this Your Vote is Your Voice campaign in partnership with the California Commission on the Status of Women and Girls in California Women Lead. Now, the goal of this campaign is to provide each of you with the information you need to be a registered, informed, and active voter. After all, women make up more than 50% of the population. So it's essential for our democracy that your voices are heard in the political process. As a voter, you'll help determine who our representatives are at all levels of government. And you'll help answer some important policy questions that appear on every single ballot. For example, as many of you know, a woman earns only 82 cents for every dollar that a white male earns for doing the same job. And that gap is even greater for women of color. Your vote is one of the most powerful tools you have to address that type of injustice. Now, the good news is registering and voting is easy once you have the right information. And so, whether you're a first time voter or you've been voting for years, we're going to be sharing with you the information you need to make sure your voice is heard and your vote is counted in this November's election. After all, our democracy needs you. We need you to vote, and we're here to help. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Vote is Your Voice panel discussion on what's in it for women. My name is LaKenya Jordan, and I'm the Executive Director for the California Commission on the Status of Women and Girls. I am super excited to be here with you as I have some fantastic women panelists who are already in their own right taking charge and are finding ways to help us forge through this election. So with that, I want to introduce our distinguished panelists. First, I'll start with Tamara Rasberry from the Office of the Secretary of State. Tamara is a 20-year veteran of the Capital community. She joined the staff of the California Secretary of Padilla in 2016 as the Assistant Deputy for Strategic Business Partnerships and Outreach. Her responsibilities include building public and private partnerships between the Secretary of State throughout the Bay Area and Northern California. Tamara is a proud mother of two wonderful, beautiful girls, and she's also the alumni of the chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority and a co-founder and first president of the Young Professionals of the Greater Sacramento Urban League. Tamara is an amazing person, and I would say I've known you for, a lot of my life. We actually from the same hometown. So welcome, Tamara, to our panel. And next we have Margita Thompson, Vice President of Communication and California Resources Corporation. Margita Thompson is Vice President, and she has a distinguished background in national and international public policy, media relations, communications, and the private and sector and government arenas as well. As communications lead for the state's largest independent oil and natural gas producer, Margita leads a team charged with unprecedented community and media engagement. Previously, she was vice president of teams spanning Disney Publishing, and she also served as press secretary for previous governor Arnold Schwarzenegger during his first term. As a member of the senior staff, she was key advisor to the governor on media strategies, crisis, and management issues, and she also served as political producer for Larry King Live in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Margita. You're a part of California Women Lead, and we're just so happy to have you here on this show.
Thank you very much.
Yes. All right. And finally, last but not least, our chair for the California Commission on the Status of Women and Girls, Dr. Alisha Wilkins. Dr. Alisha Wilkins has over 17 years of public affairs and government relations experience in both the for-profit and nonprofit sectors. She currently serves as political consultant for the Empire Consulting Group, a government relations firm which offers campaign strategies and messaging to candidates running for office, as well as public relations consulting to businesses and organizations on public outreach and engagement with key decision makers. Ms. Wilkins was appointed by Governor Jerry Brown to the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls in 2014. She currently serves as the chair of the commission, and she co-chairs both the Sexual Assault and Family Violence Committee, as well as the Legislative Committee. She also proudly served as a board member for the Fair Housing Council of Riverside County, and for a board member on the Inland Empire's chapter for Run Women Run. And I'm sure she'll tell us more about that as we get into our conversation tonight. So welcome all of you to the panel, Your Vote is Your Voice. The California Commission on the Status of Women and Girls is proud to partner with California Women Lead and the Secretary of State's office to bring you this wonderful conversation. We want to uplift and inspire our women out there who we know are going through everything from COVID-19 to just trying to make sure we stay in school and work and taking care of our families. And we have this big old thing called an election coming up. So we thought we'd use tonight as a means of allowing some wonderful discussion and some reality checks about where we are. And hopefully also Tamara can give us some good information from the Secretary of State's office on things we can look forward to during this election, excuse me, in terms of actual voting. So with that being said, I'll get right into our questions. But first I want to check in with all of you and ask you, kind of how you're doing and just kind of what you've been doing to navigate COVID-19 and working from home. What's happening in your lives? Dr. Wilkins, want to go first?
Sure, why not? So one of the things that I wanted to mention that I think Ms. Rasberry would be interested in is the fact that I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated as well. I came through the New Upsilon chapter in 1998. So yay, Soror on the line. So I actually own a shared workspace for women who own their own businesses. And I've been operating that business in the middle of COVID. So that has certainly been an interesting challenge to deal with, because part of what I do is actually help other women businesses to develop their businesses. So I'm, having challenges myself, but at the same time have this other added responsibility, which I'm sure that we'll talk about more as the panel goes on. But I'm also running for public office. I'm ready for city council here in Temecula. So that's where most of my energy has been placed.
Awesome. Well, that's a great way to channel your energy during this time. And it's so good to hear you're supporting other women in this process. Margita, how are you? How are you surviving COVID-19? What have you been up to?
Well, first of all, I want to commend Dr. Wilkins for putting herself out there and being a candidate, because that's so hard to make yourself so vulnerable, especially during this time. So congratulations on having that courage.
Thank you.
To be able to do that. I've been very lucky in that I've been able to work from home, but that's been a navigation process in and of itself. I've got a very nice Zoom background that you see behind me, but if I would, you'd see my bed behind me. So we're all working in different workspaces than we're accustomed to. And then in my case, my parents moved in with me when they retired. And so I'm taking care of them while working. So kind of reflecting, as we talk about women, it's parents, it's children, it's family, and everyone in between, and having navigate and balancing the work and the personal when there's really no boundaries has been something that's been new to navigate.
Yeah.
Women, we've got so many different parts of our responsibilities, and it's all just kind of colliding right now during COVID, but making it through and looking optimistically and just feeling really fortunate with what I've got and the fact that I've got a great home. So thank you.
Right. It's a time to be grateful for what we do have going on, right? We do have jobs, we do have homes and family to look after. So it always look for the silver lining in things. But yes. All right. Ms. Rasberry, how are you? What's going on?
Oh, hi. Hi, ladies. Honored to be on the panel with all of you tonight. I am doing well. Some days are better than other. I won't just say it's been great, because it's been stressful. I'm operating a second grade and a third grade out of my kitchen. My husband's business is operating out of the living room. And then sometimes from the patio or also in the kitchen. I'm also have a satellite office for the Secretary of State. So we have lots of things happening in our house right now. And not only that, but I have parents who are quite independent, but had health issues that aren't COVID related, but happened to come during this time of COVID. So navigating, managing, seeing them and helping them out. And then also being aware of, who I've been with and where I've been before I go see them, and making sure that I stay healthy so I can help them out, has been quite a challenge. And then also, I think taking care of myself is probably the biggest challenge. So I make sure I take walks and I exercise. That probably has been how I've gotten through this, and wine.
Well, I'm going to say I'm a big old champion cheerleader for self-care.
Yes.
It is the number one thing we must do if we're going to be helpful. Listening to all of you talk about where you are, the biggest thing I hear coming out is that you are all the glue, and for yourselves and for each other, for your families and your children and your communities. And so, that's again why we have to always value women of the utmost. We are usually, taking care of ourselves and the whole village. So I heard all of you say like your home's been transformed to 3 different or 4 different environments: home, office, school, learning community for other people, also workspace for other women in Dr. Wilkins' case, and then taking care of parents. And, so again, just another testament to the power of women and kind of what we can do when we know we have to do it. So we're gonna jump right into this, our questions, and talk about kind of where we are, and just kind of my first question, and I'm gonna ask Tamara to take the first question. What do you think is at stake for women in this upcoming election?
Oh my goodness. So I think so much is at stake, not just politically, meaning we have a Supreme Court justice that's getting ready to go through her confirmation program. We have 2 candidates for president. Well, we have an incumbent and then a challenger. We have 10 ballot propositions in California on the ballot. We have, I don't know how many candidates for not just the top office, but the down ballot races also. So I think what's on the line for women is everything, because we are the backbone of our own community, our household, but also our community. And so I think what's on the line is, I think when women vote, they don't think of just themselves at this moment when they vote. I think when women vote, they think of, how will this affect my children? How will this affect my parents? How will this affect a generation after me? And so our voting is also a form of activism. We saw with the unrest this summer, and how a lot of women were leading those marches through cities and being the spokespeople on television, advocating for their cause. Yeah. So what's at stake for women? Everything's at stake. Everything is at stake. Our issues are always up for debate, because it seems that, not just our issues, but our bodies are also, part of policy, and our livelihood, how we make our living, the choices that we have available for us, all of that is on the ballot when you vote for someone, or when you vote for a ballot initiative. And so when we vote, I think we don't just vote for ourselves at this moment in time, but when we vote, we think of how will this affect not just me, but my family 5-10 years from now.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Margita, how about you? What do you think is at stake for women on the ballot?
Well, I would build off of what Tamara was saying and what our intro was about, and that there's so many facets to our lives. And so there's not just one way that a woman is going to vote. And look at women's issues versus men issues, they're not different, it's just more so. It's gonna affect us from health, more so. It's gonna affect us on jobs, more so. It's gonna affect us on COVID, more so. So we really need to be engaged and pay attention. And part of what happens is that I think women get tired because we've got so many other responsibilities. Sometimes we may feel that we're not informed enough in order to be able to have an opinion on a certain topic, where men may be a little bit freer with pretending like they've got the expertise, when really we're all kind of starting from the same level of information. And so it's really important for women to realize that you have this opportunity to really have an impact. You have every right to have an opinion. If you want to get more informed, there's more places than ever to be informed, but really make the time. You can either do it by mail or by going in person, and there's an elongated time to be able to do that, and just make sure that you have your voice heard. There are so many issues, as Tamara mentioned, on the ballot. It's not just about who's at the top of the ticket, but it's initiatives as well. And they're all going to impact what the way we're going to be able to live our day-to-day life. So there's really a lot at stake, and there's no end of opinions, but it's okay to hold true to what you believe.
Absolutely. Wow, you have touched on a lot of different wonderful things. I'm going to ask Tamara later on to tell us more about the resources on the Secretary's website, but definitely all the different ways you can vote, and knowing that how important it is just to have your voice heard. Dr. Wilkins, what do you think is at stake for women on this ballot election?
You know what? There have been a number of really important issues that were mentioned by both of our panelists. And I'm going to just speak from my perspective, specifically as a small business owner and what I have seen within my own community. As I mentioned before, I am the owner of a women's business accelerator, and I have seen firsthand, just within my own town. I know at least 2 women who, had running, thriving businesses a year ago, and now they have shut their doors. And I think what's scary about that for me is the fact that most women business owners actually bootstrap their businesses. Women business owners, as well as people of color, typically bootstrap their own businesses, which means that they use their own personal savings to open up these businesses. So what we're talking about isn't just simply a loss of a business. We're talking about the loss of income to purchase their first home, the loss of income to send a child to school. And so I am really concerned about the state that we're in right now, especially when it comes to the economy and how it's going to affect women, in the short term and long term from here on out. So that's, what's at stake, or one of the many things that's at stake. Yeah.
Yes, no, this is some serious stuff. So we have COVID-19 hitting us at the same time that we have, a lot of outcry from the public to really end racism, and to really look at how we've been having public policy, maybe that we haven't quite put a racial lens on things in the past. And so, the country has seen a lot of civil unrest. And I wanted to ask all of you, with everyone taking to the streets, with this global outcry for equity and for equality, we know that one of the best ways to do this is actually to ask people to go to the polls and vote.
Right.
But do you see the recent increase in civil engagement as having an impact on the election this November? How will you think the civil unrest and protests actually impact the election for November? And I guess I can ask Dr. Wilkins, want to go first?
Sure. Ms. Rasberry probably has more stats than I do, but most of my perspective is very anecdotal, right? It's because I've been in the community so frequently over the last few weeks as I run my own election here locally, or my own campaign here locally, and my visceral reaction is yes, absolutely. There's going to be more engagement in the process. I'm seeing younger voters who are, interested, and they're concerned, and they're fired up, and they want to do something about it. And I'm really, really actually quite inspired by them myself. It's, in terms of being a candidate, I'm like, you know what? Thank you for giving me the energy to keep to keep at it, because it can be a bit daunting at times. So I believe that we will actually see more engagement, and I feel like we already have been seeing it.
Yeah, I would say that certainly the news shows that the people who are out there talking and kind of in front of the camera now are certainly younger folks as well, and of multiple backgrounds. Margita?
I'm super excited about the conversations that are happening. because it's a younger generation who's making things so much better for generations that came before them. A lot of times, think about people trying to make things better for generations to follow. They're making things better for us. There's going to be a lot more transparency that has to happen. So that, for my generation at least, there was a lot of acceptance of the status quo and maybe trying to tweak it at the edges. And here you're really having a generation saying, we're not going to have this asymmetrical conversation where things appear to change, but they're really not. Happening is that across the generations, people are questioning assumptions about institutions and doing a lot of introspection across ethnicities and across genders around how things may not be quite what they appear. Questioning that unconscious bias, implicit bias, is going to open so much opportunity for people. And so my hope is that through the election, we make a pivot from a lot of this anger that we're seeing to being able to see the opportunity that it's going to unlock for people, so that we can start focusing on the bigger pie rather than that smaller pie. And I think that that bigger pie is one that embraces diverse voices, diverse faces, diverse points of view, and things are going to be really exciting in the years ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, diversity and having more people at the table to talk about the issues of intersectional experiences, both race and gender, is so powerful. And I agree with you. It's just a huge outcome of what we've seen. And yes, I want to see us at the polls. And that means, yes, if you were inspired at all, get out there. All right, Ms. Rasberry, tell us about what you think is happening with the civil unrest, and how do you think that's going to impact elections this year?
It has completely impacted the elections. And following what Margita said about this younger generation who are questioning things that we've accepted for so long, as long as that's just how the things are, and how they have pushed so many stalwart, immovable, impenetrable institutions, and they've moved them to the edge. And for example, today I was at our football team stadium to announce, to be part of the press conference that announced that the football stadium will be opened as a vote center. And all these sports arenas around the state, we've met with all of them, and they all now are moving towards making that space available for a vote center. Now, 4 years ago, at this time in November, not all sports are going on, right? Baseball stadiums were empty. Probably some hockey stadiums were empty. Football's still going on, but there are probably, no games on a Tuesday. So, but that option wasn't available to us to have vote centers on sporting sites. And this movement came not just from the fans, but from the players themselves, who are, these players are born in, the late 90s. So their generation is something, 4 years ago, they were teenagers. They weren't that engaged, but now they're adults and they're in the spotlight, they're making money, but also they realize that they have a very important platform, and they've pushed their organizations to the absolute edge to say the status quo isn't okay, even for a professional football team or even for a professional basketball team. And so my phone has been ringing. Organizations that I called in January, and they were radio silent for months, right? In June, all of a sudden our phone was ringing, and they wanted to be a part of this. And whether it came from pressure from the outside in or the inside out, or pressure from the bottom to the top, I'm just glad it's happening, because what we're seeing is an integration of not just sports, but just people being aware. So now that people are like, okay, there's an election, I've registered to vote, and there's things I need to vote on, I need to know what these things are. And so people doing the research and finding out who the candidates are, asking questions. They want to know very specific, how do you feel about this? And I'm sure Dr. Wilkins could attest with her, door knocking and doing her campaign. People want to know, where are you on this issue? And it's not so much the partisan lines have kind of dissipated and it's now in issues. Where are you on this issue? Because this issue is important to me. And I did a program with Oakland Tech High School at the end of the year, where their art teacher had asked them to make, they were studying propaganda, and they made voting propaganda posters. And if you go on our Secretary of State's website, I should have changed it. It's usually my background, my virtual background here. And the students, all their issues, what they cared about, and these posters, this was their personal propaganda, were, this is Oakland, right? East Oakland, police brutality, homelessness, job equity, housing equity, and the environment. Like, those were the issues that were very important.
And high school students too, right? Who wanted to hear about this.
They wrote their own propaganda poster on, like, vote on November 3rd with a message to it. And those were the messages, and it was universal. Like, those were the issues that were important to them. So I think we're seeing a revolution. I mean, can you imagine when these kids start running for office, how the world is going to change? I can't wait. I can't wait.
And honestly, that's a very good point. The future to me is bright because of the engagement, because people are no longer willing to just sit by and be a bystander and let things happen as they are. And, you know, no knock on our generation who had to accept a lot of different things to just get by and to conform to get ahead, especially being women, you know, and women of color trying to advance. But as we are talking about the next generation, my next question actually would be this: how are you mentoring the next generation? How are you helping to encourage and inform those minds who are up and coming? Margita, wanna go ahead?
Sure, I'll start. First of all, since I'm the one panelist who works in a larger corporation, I'll say that I'm starting it, first of all, by helping a lot of the women within the company. I also am very proud to be Latina, and we're very engaged with different groups like HOPE, Hispanas Organized for Political Equality. That's a leadership training opportunity for Latinas, and I've had some women go through that. And in addition, we're involved with a group called Coro, and I've had some women go through Coro leadership as well. And then through those leadership programs, I've now developed a little public affairs advisory committee internally of the people who have gone through that training.
Very smart, yes.
So very supportive of that. Thrilled to be involved with California Women Lead as well. And then the other thing is that I try and speak as often as I can. For everyone who's listening, please try and connect with me, and I'm sure everyone else would say, on LinkedIn. And I've had people who wanted to connect on LinkedIn, and I'm like, I will have 15 minutes for anyone. If you want to have a conversation and talk about what your issues are and brainstorm quickly. So it's from programmatic to individual. I've been really excited about the groups that I'm involved with, and excited to mix some of the experience I have with the opportunity of the moment to really create some sparks that drive change within my company and within society and communities.
And does your company do voting, or are you guys able to help encourage women to vote?
Yes, I want to talk to Tamara, and I want to get the information that we need from the California Secretary of State, because all of our employees are Californian, and we want to make sure that we get everyone to turn out to vote. And I would encourage anyone that is here watching from a company, make sure that you connect with the Secretary of State's office, because they've always got the creme de la creme of information about what you need to do to be able to go and vote.
Yes, they are a trusted sponsor and site for this conversation. In fact, you can also go to our website, www.women.ca.gov/yourvoteisyourvoice, to also find information and links to the website that will give you everything from where you can volunteer to how to register. So do that, please. Dr. Wilkins, how are you engaging and mentoring the next generation?
That's a great question. So when I was appointed by Governor Brown in 2014, one of the things that I started doing immediately was engaging young women in understanding the process of actually going through an appointment process and encouraging them to apply for boards and commissions. Quite often when we think about leadership, we think about, leadership on a board or leadership on, as an elected official, and we forget that there oftentimes at the local level, there are boards and commissions, as well as the state and federal level, that you can actually serve on and be appointed to. And so that's one of the things that I have consistently done over the last, 6 years that I've been a state commissioner. So I have conducted boards and commissions workshops with my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated,
Okay.
demystifying the process of applying for boards and commissions, and actually even subsequently to that, actually having one-on-ones with women on, what they need to do to apply. Last week, I actually had a town hall featuring a current city council member with Temecula, council member Zach Schwenk, who we got on Zoom and live streamed it to Facebook so that people could have an opportunity to learn what commissions are have vacancies right now, because I think that's half the battle. Sometimes when I'm out in the community, it's just the fact that people just don't even know. So that was my intent behind that, was to make sure that people actually know that there's these commissions exist, and then 2, know that there are some vacancies on those commissions, and then 3, what the process looks like. And so we were able to also entertain questions that people have that serve as barriers to them actually, applying for boards and commissions. And so that's what I have been doing, and is really, really pushing that amongst young women.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the biggest thing for women, we always talk ourselves out of, running for office or applying for the next job or the promotion. And so it is having that safe space to talk through some of those kinds of concerns or insecurities that really can be helpful. And Tamara, you mentioned earlier about the high school students who you did a project with, who were able to tell you their issues. Are there other things you're engaged in to help encourage the next generation of women voters or voters?
They're in my house right now. They're 7 and almost 9, so they're not quite able to vote yet. And let me tell you, the almost 9-year-old is very, very upset that the law does not allow her to vote for another 18 years. Like, she is so upset.
And she's impacted the most, right? The youngest kids are going to be impacted the most because they're, so.
Yes. Yeah, they are. Yeah. And then the little one found out she had a lot longer. She had 12 years until she could vote. And she was not happy about that at all. That was way too long. And so the fact that they were sad that they couldn't vote in this election because there's a candidate on the ballot who they really like, and they really want to see that candidate win, then I know I'm doing something right. And so it's part of just a conversation that I have with them all the time. On election day, as part of my responsibility with the Secretary of State, I have to monitor different polling places and report and just make sure they're meeting certain criteria. And I told her I would take her with me. So I'm going to pull out of school that day so she can go to the vote centers and see what an election actually is. Since I'm an absentee voter, they don't get to go into the booth with me. But what I do is, when I turn in my ballot, I do it at a polling place so they can see, and I let them put it in the box, and then they get their sticker. And so it's just that little thing of having them get excited about a process that's 10 plus years for them, but they're very excited about it. And so that's just in my own household. I also, like Margita, I make myself very available for anyone who wants to talk to me about a career in politics, about a career in policymaking that's similar to mine. I make myself very available to mentors. The mentors that I have are a little bit, well, they're old. They're an older young person, so they're in their early to mid 20s, so they're just starting out in their career. And I have some non-females in that group too, because I feel, and it's interesting that my group of mentees are very mixed. I have people of all backgrounds. LGBT community is in my mentoring group, and it's just a great little circle where they provide the input of, like, okay, is your generation? What are you interested in? How do you speak to each other? How do you communicate? How do you advocate? And so I get something back from them too.
Yeah,
But as
always.
far as women are concerned, my priority are women, and specifically Black women, providing opportunities for them and the type of career that I've had too. You know, LaKenya and I have talked about that for years now. So, but getting them excited to vote is my number one priority. So I spend a lot of my own time talking to teen groups wherever I can,
Yeah.
and getting them information on voting.
And Tamara, one of the things I would say too is that you mentioned this, they actually end up mentoring you back.
Yes.
And making
Yes.
you more relevant and really giving you insight that make you better at doing your job. So
yes.
That
And they're great at social media too. Like, what is this Snap thing? Snapchat?
I call it Snappy Chat. So
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But no, that is the key though, and actually the secret that people don't always know, that when you're a mentor, you really get something back. I know I certainly do from the mentees that I have. Shout out to all of them, ladies who are in the Capitol, who are around the country, and even a young lady in South Africa who I've known for the past 4 years. It's something like actually sharing your story, sharing and hearing from them, right? Giving an ear to them and hearing their concerns, and letting them know they're not in it by themselves, and that we're really in this all together. Because we need each other. The young need the seasoned, right? And we need the experience to be shared, so that they know that it's something they can get through, even with COVID-19, and even though things are uncertain right now. I actually want to pivot to another question for you all. There's a historic number of women running for Congress and in California this cycle. So do you think that women should support female candidates for the sake of representation? And if so, why does it matter that women actually vote and run in elections? What's this all about? Who wants to go first?
You know what, my initial reaction is, well, what I am reminded of is statistics concerning women who are executives on boards and for companies, and how typically their presence increases innovation of that company, and it also increases productivity. And so I am a huge proponent of ensuring that women are elected to public office, because quite frankly, you know, recently I was having a conversation with a potential constituent, and talking about the fact that, you know, when we look at the makeup of the commissioners that are on like Parks and Recreation, it's, you know, mostly men. Very few of them spend very much time at the park with their kids, but they're making decisions about that park, right? And so I definitely agree that there should be more representation of women, you know, as elected officials. So yeah, I concur with that.
Awesome. Who wants to go next and answer the question?
I'll go. I think it's extremely important. It also depends on the candidate in the election, right? So we're going to vote on issues as well, but I know that for me personally, I haven't always had the issues necessarily dictate who I'm going to support and who I'm going to help, because I am A-okay with supporting a woman to bring some diversity of thought to a group that may not otherwise have it. Because I think it's so important that we need to be willing to be supportive of people with whom we have a lot in common, but may have some opinions that differ. And because you can't just demand tolerance, you have to show it. And you can't just demand diversity, you have to support it. And so where I'm really thinking about this from my background is that I happen to be Republican. And a lot of times it's really hard to get women who are super excited about getting women candidates. They have a really hard time when they think about a woman candidate who's a Republican, right? And so I have, if I didn't have Democratic friends, I live in California, I wouldn't have any friends, right? So I want to be supportive of the people I know, and I want to be willing to get to know people who are different than me, and I want to be supportive of them. And I think that we just need to be open-minded and willing to support people who are willing to talk and willing to listen, most important, even if they don't always have the same opinion that you do.
Absolutely.
Good
Tamara?
points.
Yes, I obviously think that if you're running for office, you have to have a certain level of qualification, and that doesn't mean you have to have years and years of background in policy making, but your qualification should be that you care about the community that you're running for, and that this isn't just a spot for you to wait until, you know, something better comes along. Like, if you're going to go through the act of running for office, then you should actually understand that you may win, and when you're there, you need to represent the interests of the constituents. And I don't care what kind of office that is, from the small, you know, dog catcher to mosquito abatement district number 5, that you need to represent that office well. And when women are put in those positions, and I'm sure, as Dr. Wilkins has been through the process as a candidate, that when women are encouraged to run, they are, and this is coming from both sides of the aisle. When I was a lobbyist, I worked with a lot of Republican and a lot of Republican women, and the conversations I had with them brought down this wall where I realized, oh, okay, the partisanship is a construct, but there's so many other things that you and I agree on, because we're both women, because we're both mothers, because we both had to kind of like scratch and, you know, had the type of experiences to get to the point where we're having this conversation together. And I very much respect that. Now, if someone's from a different party, am I just going to, or from a represent a group of ideals that are completely counter to mine, will I, you know, place a vote for that person just because they're women? I don't know, but I'll tell you, I'll be secretly like, yeah, girl, go. And kind of buck the system, because one thing that frustrates me, just me personally, not with my Secretary of State hat on, but just as a citizen, is when a woman's voice is shrunk in order for a like some preservation of institution to continue. And I mean, that irks me just to the point where, you know, just burn down the institution if it's preventing that voice from being heard. And so, and we see it in politics so much, especially when it comes to running from an office, especially in partisanship, offices where there's a partisan race to it, that sometimes we don't see the establishment supporting the woman because it's been reserved for someone else. And I think those are some of those, the dismantling of systems that this younger generation we were talking about before are, you know, they're ready to burn that type of system down too, because everyone wants a space, and they don't want to think because of their age or because of their gender that they should wait their turn. They want it now.
And that
I just want to say one thing, in that I think Tamara brought up a really good point, in that there's different ways to support women candidates. And it may not be that you're willing to give your vote, but giving psychological support and being able to engage in conversations. And the other thing that's really cool about that is, like, let's say the person gets elected, you're going to have a relationship with that person. And the best change to drive is unexpected change. And so you're going to be able to have relationships with people that are really going to shake people up, because they're not going to be able to expect what you do.
Well, I want to do something that I know that you all may be able to relate to. The Commission on the Status of Women and Girls has actually hosted a few different conversations, or at least been involved in a few different conversations with regard to equal pay, and to kind of how women of color actually are at a disproportionate impact when it comes to the dollar. The stats just show that, you know, Black women are earning just 60 cents on the dollar when compared to white men. When it comes to Asian women, it's 70 cents, and to Latino women, 40 cents. Native women, actually 50 cents on the dollar. So there's a common theme here that we've all kind of lived through this, as we said, generational racism, institutional racism, and times where we've accepted kind of the norms of not actually having women be included or in those jobs or positions. So what I wanted to do is ask you all something that I've been burning in my heart, which is how do you call women to the table to become each other's allies and accomplices at this time? I mean, because really this is what this is about. this election is about how do we stand up for one another. I may not have your background, I may not have your experiences, but as you said, Tamara, and as you said, Margita, we are women. And I mean, not to quote Madeline Albright, but it's a cold place, you know, for women who don't support each other.
Yeah.
And so it seems like now more than ever with COVID-19, I mean, hitting, again, small businesses, as Dr. Wilkins mentioned, hitting us health-wise disproportionately, and unemployment being impacted. Is there not a better time to call for allies and for accomplices? And I'm going to ask all of you, how do you do that? How do you call them into the table to stand up for each other?
Well, I called them. I called them. I called them to the table.
Okay.
I did. I called them and said, I'm building a table. Can you come? And they said yes.
Okay.
And this has happened and I've been invited to tables too.
Yes.
Because I think, and I'm pretty sure all of you have had those phone calls and you're building your tables, because a friend of mine said, you know, when you if they don't have a seat for you at a table, make sure you have your own chair.
Bring a folding chair.
Yeah, bring a folding chair.
Yeah.
And if they don't make room, you make your own damn table.
Mm-hmm.
So we're making our own table, because what we're seeing here is that this movement, and I don't even know what it is. It's more than civil rights. It's like humanity, but this movement is happening.
Yes.
And I have my thread for this have been women. I think back on it, I'm like, have I invited any men? I'm like, no. I don't even think they were invited to be part of the discussion. Not that we're trying to exclude them,
right.
but we know who we can count on, and that's each other.
Yes.
And we do it through our sorority, Dr. Wilkins, and I, you know, with LaKenya through the Commission on the Status of Women, and even with California Women Lead. Like, we call each other. So I actually picked up the phone and called women, got it, sent some emails out. We've had conversations. I've been part of other groups where we are saying, okay, this is our moment. What are we going to put our resources towards and achieve? And we have this much time to do it.
Awesome. How about you, Dr. Wilkins? How are you calling?
Oh, that one is actually pretty easy for me personally. There is nothing like running for public office as a time to, you know, call on those individuals who have, you know, for years in my life at least said, hey, you know, I support you, I'm with you. Okay. You know, yeah. Yes, exactly. So now I need someone to, now I need, you know, financial support for the campaign. Now I need folks to help with phone banking. Now I need for folks to literature drop. And so that has been my call to action. You know,
how's it been working out for you? Has it been an enormous response?
You know what, it has been a really good response for me. And I think that, you know, I've been very intentional about the relationships that I have created. You know, over the course of my career, I've been, you know, just very intentional about making sure that my circle is very diverse.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has played well for me in terms of getting support from a diverse group of women. I just wish that other people, those same women, were just as intentional about creating those same type of relationships with other women, because I think that I would be more than their, you know, their Black friend, you know what I mean? I'd be yes.
You will inspire them, and that's what it is. It's about the flame, you know, lighting the candle and passing the torch. And so hopefully, Dawn, and I'm sure it's going to be working out fine for you.
Yes. Yeah.
Margita, how about you?
So I would say money is power, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people like to have conversations that are at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs with all of this spiritual validation. But the reality is, the facts you just illustrated, most people are struggling to make ends meet. And so that goes to what are the issues that we're going to be supporting? And are we looking at issues from the perspective of people that don't have the luxury of discretion?
Mm-hmm.
So we really need to focus on issues like that. From a corporate perspective, it means how can we work with our peers so that we can have transparency in terms of salary equity. Because one of the things that people don't know is I don't know what someone else makes. So I've heard of groups that have formed where they will create survey monkeys within the group, so you can de-identify who you are, but then you can ask questions like, what's your, what kind of level are you, VP, SVP, and how much salary are you making? So people can then start creating their own little transparent world so that you have a better idea when you decide to try and negotiate for yourself. For a candidate like Dr. Wilkins, it's really hard because women don't traditionally have the fundraising ability. Just like you mentioned that women and minority ethnic diverse entrepreneurs have to rely on their own finances and don't have a lot of people that can do the big lending. It's also hard for the community to have the people that can cut the big checks for fundraising. And so we need to be able to support candidates so that they can expand their base beyond their geography, beyond the issue, so that we can have more women have the money and feel comfortable talking about money, so that you feel comfortable asking for money. Because Dr. Wilkins, when you started versus where you are now, you're probably a lot more comfortable now asking people for your candidacy.
I am.
So that's what we really need to focus on, because to me, it's really about having money means power.
Absolutely. So whether it's, you know, getting together to do a fundraising event for a friend to help with an election, whether it's encouraging somebody to run for office, whether it's actually coming to the table, as Tamara did, holding groups and discussions on the policy issues and coming up with solutions. There are many ways that you can form ally groups. The California Commission on the Status of Women and Girls actually will be forming a formal allies group, a statewide allies group. And we are working on that with a number of organizations, including California Women Lead, as we really do believe that it's about trying to have us all come to the table and really be there for each other. So with that, I have to close our conversation. It's been so wonderful talking to all three of you. I'm going to ask that, since we came together to talk about, you know, the impact of women in voting, that we ask Ms. Rasberry to please kind of give us some more voting resources as we close. Women, we want you to know that your voice matters. Not only does your voice matter, we need you. Your sisters need you. Women need you to speak up for not only yourself, but for your communities, for your families. We do it for the next generation. Tamara's daughters who can't even vote, who want to be at the polls. This is our time. This is our moment. So with that, Tamara, please give us some details on how we can vote and participate in this year's election.
Sure. So we've been working really hard to make sure that every single obstacle to voting is removed in California. So with the COVID shelter-in-place regulations statewide, the governor required that all ballots be mailed to every single registered voter. But with that, we will still have in-person voting available starting on October 31st to November 3rd. On October 31st, starting from 9 to 5. And then obviously on election day, you can vote from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. On November 3rd. And if you don't receive your ballot, if you aren't registered to vote, you have until October 19th to actually register to vote in time to receive your ballot in the mail. If you've missed that deadline, you can vote. You can register to vote at the vote center during those days it's open, starting October 31st. And then they will hand you a ballot so you could actually register to vote and also vote on the same day. We've also made sure that postage is paid. So when you mail your ballot, you do not need stamps, no matter how big that envelope is. You do not need an extra stamp. So you can turn it in. We've also made sure that you could turn it in several different ways. You could drop it in the mail. You could put it in a dedicated ballot drop box, which can be found on vote.ca.gov to find the drop box in your neighborhood, countywide. The polling places are countywide polling places, so you can go anywhere in your county and drop off your ballot or request a ballot, or you could just walk it in. We have partnerships with different sports stadiums where you can drive it in. You could pull up into the stadium, get your sticker, take a picture, drop it off, and never get out of your car. So if there was an obstacle, we have found our way around it. We are going to have drop boxes at Starbucks. We're going to have drop boxes at Goodwill stores. We're having drop boxes at hotels. It pretty much any public space where there's accessibility, and it'll be open for those drop boxes almost 24 hours a day. We have found pretty much there's no excuse. You have no excuse not to vote. And we've also provided resources so you can be educated on what you're voting on. So vote.ca.gov, you can find out ballot propositions, you get information on those, you can see how they're being paid for, who's paying to support the campaign, who's paying to oppose the campaign. So our website just has so much information, and we're asking people to please start there before you pass along incomplete or misinformation or something that's been created to actually lead people to the wrong path. So
Awesome.
that can be found on the commission's website and also on our website.
Awesome. So, and we have great things on there about how to create a voting plan. We will also be hosting another discussion. Tune in to the debates. They are up and coming, and I think there's one really soon. So you just keep yourself informed and know that we can do this. We really can make a difference if we all work together. So I want to thank all my distinguished panelists for your time today and on this wonderful topic. You all are champions for women in your own right. You are obviously leaders kicking down doors and breaking barriers, and obviously giving back to the community in so many ways. So I salute you. I thank you for being part of this conversation, and we look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Thank you.
That being said, we'll end our call now, and thank you again for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.